Michael with United Veterans Worldwide here and excited to interview Leisa Price. She is a friend of my wife's, and she has come to us with a lot of experience in nutrition and also working, I think, with some TBI cases, maybe even some PTSD cases. And I really think that her experiences will add a lot of value to this channel. If you're a veteran who's been struggling with symptoms of a TBI or PTSD, and you feel like you can't make progress on your own, then I would encourage you to tune into this program here today and start to gain some of the knowledge about nutrition and how that affects us overall. Now, I've asked Leisa to come and share a couple of things with us today, and I'll start with an introduction to Leisa. So Leisa, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So I am a registered dietitian. My plan out of high school was to go to medical school.
Yeah.
I started getting a degree in exercise physiology, thinking I was going to be a doctor. And then about 2 years in, I just decided I wanted to be on the preventative end of care more than the treatment end.
Yeah.
You know, I want to help people before they get to that heart failure or before they get to medication for diabetes.
And medicine is not good at that.
I mean, no, it's not great.
We are
Lifestyle.
reactive and not preventative. So this is interesting. Keep going. Yeah.
And lifestyle just makes such a difference, right?
Yeah.
And I figured nutrition would go great with my exercise degree.
Yeah.
And I just love food. I love to cook. I love to eat.
Yeah.
And, I love that food can be such good medicine for our bodies.
Awesome.
So I got my master's in nutrition, became a registered dietitian.
Yeah.
And then the rest is history. I also am a mom to 4 busy kids.
Yeah.
And we do a lot of outside stuff. We do a lot of sports. And my kids all eat vegetables. So I feel like that's
and your
nice.
husband's an athletic guy. He
is.
He's a great basketball player. I can attest to that. Yeah.
He is. We're just trying to stay active to keep up with our kids, really.
Yeah. Good for you. Good
Yeah.
for you. Well, that's great. So in your education journey, did you feel like there were things that pointed you more towards learning about PTSD, TBI, and nutrition? Is it tied in?
Well, I remember doing part of my internship. So as a dietitian, you have to do an internship, and part of it has to be in a hospital. And part of that was on the neuro ICU unit at the University of Utah. And just seeing those patients that, I saw a suicide patient, and I saw someone who tried to jump out of a car, and it's just so sad to see these people go through these things.
Oh, it's brutal.
And nutrition is just so important, not only for helping your body heal, but then to manage your life after such an event, right? Like, you need to be able to know how to take care of yourself when it's not easy.
Yeah.
If you've had a TBI, it's not easy to take care of yourself.
No, that's incredible. And I think that's exactly why you are a perfect person to talk to us about nutrition and why it's a passion for you today. So why don't you just start us off with some of your ideas of nutrition, and I'm going to take some notes and I'll ask a couple questions as we go.
Perfect. So as far as nutrition, I totally believe that all foods can fit in a healthy diet, but it's so important that we eat the right foods in the right amount to fuel our bodies. I think a lot of times we can get into an idea that food is a reward for ourselves or food is a comfort for ourselves. And food should be enjoyable, but first and foremost, it's fuel for our bodies, right?
Yeah.
We need the calories to give us energy. We need carbs. We need protein for muscle. We need vitamins and minerals to help everything function correctly.
Yeah.
So food is just really, I think it's really more important than people realize, and that what we're eating is more important than people realize.
I think as part of my military experience, there were only a certain units that I was associated with where nutrition came into play. It was once I joined the special operations community, and then they were really concerned about, if some of you have been part of this, really concerned about how we get our energy, how we sustain our energy, especially during times of up-tempo in combat environments. If we've taken, let's say, for instance, like a Snicker bar as an example, and we're running on a Snickers bar for 8 hours a day running, it won't sustain us over that long period of time. But there are some foods that can help us to get that sustained energy. So one of the things that I've struggled with over time, and mind you, my TBI occurred a long time ago, and I didn't notice the symptoms for a long time, but my energy will start out pretty strong in the day and then just take a huge dive. And some of you might be able to relate to this. And when that dive happens, I'm on zero. Like I can hardly even get out of my chair. My kids, my wife, my job, my whatever is all ancillary to me not having anything to give.
Right, and when you get to those points, it's hard to make good choices.
Oh, it's terrible.
It's hard to be like, I'm starving, I'm going to go eat some vegetables, because you're starving and you just want a quick fix. You want something easy, you want something that's going to taste good, and that's when we make choices that are maybe not as good for our bodies, is when we let our energy get depleted.
Yeah. So when we talk about food, are you a proponent of food prepping?
Yeah, I think that it depends on what works for the person. Food is such an individual thing, but I love food prepping because it gives you an easy, healthy option for those moments, right? When you're starving, you don't necessarily want to take the time to make a whole healthy meal.
No.
But if you have something that's already prepared, it's easy to grab that, and it's easy to make a good choice if it's already in your fridge. So I love, a lot of people do meal prepping where they'll have like a protein with a grain and some vegetables.
Yeah.
And they do it on Sunday or Saturday, and they divide it up and it's set to go. But it doesn't even have to be that complicated. Even just washing like your fruits and vegetables when you get home from the store and putting them easy access in your fridge, that can also just help you make those good choices. Oh,
I love that. That idea of making things simple. I think for us as veterans and supporters of veterans, caregivers, simple is what we go for. Complex becomes a lot harder to plan out and manage when there are so many other aspects of our lives that we're trying to manage. Now, me as a husband, as a father, with 6 kids, with a job, with athletics, with whatever else we're involved in, it becomes a big challenge. So one of the things I'll be talking to Leisa about, maybe not as much today, but going forward in the future, will be how do we plan for those simple meals and make that sustainable? Now, Leisa, you have spoken previously to me about a certain type of nutrition plan that you called a Mediterranean diet.
Yes.
Now, I lived over in the Mediterranean for several years as a kid. My father was in the military as well, and we lived in Italy, Greece, and I remember having such a wide variety of delicious salads, not wine. I'm not an alcohol drinker, but things of that nature, olive oil, and all of that stuff adds so much rich texture to the foods that I was eating. And I really think it helped me manage weight as a child because my father was a big man. So it was easy for us to put on weight if we weren't watching ourselves, right? So why don't you walk us through a little bit about what the Mediterranean diet's all about and what that includes.
So I love the Mediterranean diet. It's full of fruits and vegetables. It's full of lean proteins. It's full of nuts and seeds and beans and olive oil. And you kind of want to avoid dairy and red meats with the Mediterranean diet.
Okay.
And I love the Mediterranean diet because with PTSD and TBI, it's really an up-and-coming area of research with nutrition.
Yeah.
There's some studies, but there's not a lot. It's hard to do research on someone who has experienced something so traumatic.
Yeah, agreed.
But we do know that the Mediterranean diet helps with mental functioning. It helps your brain. It's good fuel for your brain. So eating something that's helping your brain is going to help with a TBI or a PTSD situation, which is why the Mediterranean diet is so awesome. And there was actually just a recent study out of Harvard. Just last fall, they published it that showed really promising results with the Mediterranean diet and PTSD.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, so it's high in like fatty fish that are going to provide omega-3s for your brain. It's high in fruits and vegetables that are going to provide antioxidants. It's high, like you said, in olive oil that's such a healthy fat for us.
Yeah.
And it just limits those things that maybe aren't as good for us, like the red meats, that are going to be high in cholesterol. They're going to cause more inflammation in our body, raise our homocysteine levels. And it even limits like chicken, and it encourages more protein from things like beans or, like black beans, garbanzo beans, that type of thing.
So we're talking about a food source that is at its basic form without any additives, preparation, anything of that nature. So if we have a chicken, for instance, in the United States, our chickens may be injected with a certain type of hormone that makes them get bigger. And we're starting to find that hormone doesn't doesn't react well with our bodies and actually can even cause a cancer. So when she's talking about limiting some of these other types of proteins that might still be lean, the best source would really be a plant-based type of protein.
Yeah, exactly. And we don't necessarily want vegetarian, though that is a very helpful way to live.
True.
But, you know, not everyone is up for a vegetarian diet.
I think I would shrink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also enjoy, you know, some protein from meat. But focusing on those healthier proteins that are really going to fuel our brains.
Yeah.
You know, like salmon, tuna, mackerel, those types of...
And I love that stuff.
Yeah, all the fish that is going to just provide those healthy fats for us.
So a word that keeps sticking out to me as Lisa's talking is brain food. And she mentioned it briefly, like the food for our brain. Brain food. I like that catchphrase, because if we deliberately eat in a way that can be beneficial to our brain, I can't imagine that it won't make an impact on someone like me who suffered a TBI to have some benefit, a positive benefit as a result of doing something like this.
Exactly. Like it can only help with, you know, all the symptoms, not even just the initial TBI, but, you know, people who have PTSD and TBIs are more at risk for depression and anxiety,
Yes.
and it's going to help with all of those types of things.
Yeah. So I hope you heard that, audience, that Lisa's mentioning depression and anxiety. Those are the two biggest buzzwords in the United States medical for the Veterans Administration. I think 90% of veterans who have come out of the military with injuries of some sort have been linked to having both depression and anxiety, and myself included. You know, my symptoms didn't hit for a long time until after I retired from the Army medically. When my shoulder was destroyed, my sleep was affected, the stress at work got to be overwhelming, and then suddenly this wave of PTSD overtook me. I self-isolated. I got into some bad habits that were leading me in a spiral, and I didn't seem to be able to control my spiral. So what Lisa's talking about here, I really think is the next level for a wellness journey that is something you can start today. If your main goal to get a win today and check that box is really getting out of bed, putting on some clothes, and finding some brain food, right? Finding something that'll add value to your day today, and give you more energy so that you can check that next goal off the box, whatever that might be in your journey of wellness. I think that's right, Lisa. Thank you. That's good.
You're welcome. And it can be even as simple as, you know, just starting with adding an extra fruit or vegetable to your day. It's sometimes overwhelming to think about a whole diet recall, but if you can take it, you know, one bite at a time, then it makes it a lot more manageable. And once you get used to eating more fruits, then you add the fish, or then you add the beans, or then you maybe take away the red meats that you're eating too much of.
Yeah.
It's just taking those steps.
I like that. So in preparation for meeting with Lisa, as soon as I texted her and asked her if she'd want to be part of this project to help with veterans wellness, she was immediately on board. And from that day, I decided I was going to start making some initial changes, not knowing what Lisa was going to have prepared. But I cut out processed foods. I stopped eating junk food, which I ate a lot of junk food. And I would eat my oatmeal for breakfast, which wouldn't be until around noon. And then I would eat an apple with maybe some peanut butter or something. And then at dinner time, I would eat whatever my wife prepared. And sometimes it was red meat or whatever it was. But I've already noticed in a 10-day journey that my face, as an example, looks less swollen. Now, I don't know anything about a reaction our body has to some of what I would now label as poison, but my face started to swell, and I can look in my face now and I can see my jawline a little bit more. I haven't lost weight, but the foods I'm consuming right now are making an impact visually, even though I'm also really concerned about what happens inside.
Right, and you know, that could be as simple as getting rid of processed foods that have so much sodium that help you retain water. You know what I mean? As you just start to eat more natural foods and more from the land, more fruits and veggies and that type of thing, and get rid of those prepackaged foods, then that can help. I mean, not all prepackaged foods are going to be terrible for you, right? There are definitely some very healthy things that you can buy, but just focusing on the basics, focusing on the fruits and the vegetables and the lean proteins, and just looking for a greater variety in your diet also helps.
Okay, so if I put this into real context today, so we're talking, we can still consume chicken, but we start to get a lot of our other proteins from a plant-based source would be ideal. Okay, so beans, everybody reacts differently on different types of beans, right? Sometimes it causes a lot of bloating or whatever else, but overall, beans are a healthy source of protein. I don't know what the exact measurement is, protein per beans or cup of beans, but when we talk calories as an example, I think some of our United States and maybe European are familiar with counting calories as part of a nutrition in a diet. I've tried that before because in weightlifting, it's like everybody talks about counting your calories. If you're in a calorie deficit, then you're going to lose weight. But if you're not eating the right foods, then you'll also burn muscle. And in exercise fitness, we want to maintain the muscle, we want to burn the fat, we want to maintain a healthy heart and nutrition all around, right?
Right. It's a whole balance. You don't want to lose weight by starving yourself, because like you said, then you're just going to lose muscle. And that's not great, because you want to keep your muscle, because muscle burns calories. So the more muscle you have, the more calories you burn. So that's why like a weightlifting program is always beneficial, because you're going to build that muscle that's going to help you burn calories. So you're exactly right. It's about a balance of getting the right amount of food, making sure you're fueling your body appropriately, but also adding in that physical activity and making sure that your portions are under control. Ooh,
portion control. This is a big one. I don't tend to eat a big portion when I'm consuming food. My Achilles heel has been the snacks afterwards. I finish a meal and it's a good meal and I feel full, and then I'm like, oh, I want something tasty. And sometimes it's chocolate, right? And some people say chocolate's better than getting the other type of candies. But all of that to me has created like a poison in my body, where my body has reacted in ways that are not sustainable, energy-wise included, right?
Yeah, so that's where I go back to. All foods can fit into a healthy diet. It's just it depends on how much. If most of your calories are coming from your after dinner ice cream, then that's not great. You know, if you're passing on the healthy foods so that you can fit in those less healthy foods, we call them like a nutrient dense food. So a food that has lots of nutrients and is going to be good for your body. If you're passing up on those to fit the other foods in, then you got to look at your balance, right?
So I'm going to draw out real quick, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, and I'll show this here in a second. But if we say, I don't like this pen, we'll try a different one. Okay, so we have fats, carbs, and proteins. If we look at calories, fats have about 9 grams of calories, right, worth. Carbs is about 4 to 5.
4 calories per gram,
And protein is about the same, isn't it? Something 4 to 5. Daniel? So when you're trying to look at your calorie intake, you want to look at the packaging and see what it says in terms of fat. So if it says you're looking at 25 grams of fat, right? Am I doing the math right here, Leisa?
Yeah. Okay. So if it has 25 grams of fat, then you would multiply that by 9. And that's how many calories.
Oh, this is the calories. Yes, calories. For 1 gram of fat is 9.
Yeah, 1 gram of fat is
9 calories.
Yes.
All right, so this is the right thing on it here. All right, so hopefully that made it a little bit clearer. If I'm looking at protein intake, if you're having a heavy physical exercise and you want to take protein in, which is the muscle building nutrient, then you're looking at, if it says you're taking a scoop of protein, in most commercial ones is 25 to 30 grams, you're going to multiply that by
4.
By 4 to get your calorie count. And that way you can start to set up what your actual calorie intake looks like.
Yep.
So I can imagine if we talk to those who are tuning in today and looking at their calorie count, and you said, where do most of your calories come from? Mm-hmm. I would be willing to bet that it comes from an unhealthy processed source. And if that's the case, then we're already know that we can change one thing and make an impact. You change that one main source for whatever that calorie intake is, and you're already on a better track in terms of nutrition.
Yeah, exactly. And you want to make sure these carbs and fats and proteins, you want to make sure you're getting all three of them in, because they're all three going to do different things. It's just making sure that your carbs are coming from a good source and that your protein is coming from a good source.
Yeah, what she said was so important, because if we look at a lot of fad diets out there right now, which are quick fixes to maybe get your body into the shape you want to get into, it's not sustainable, and it's not going to be probably from the sources you're looking for. And they always require you to drop one of the sources of energy. So they'll say, no more carbs, right?
Yep.
Carbs are bad, don't do carbs. Or they'll say, don't do fats. Fats are all bad.
Yep.
You eat fat, it's gonna equal to your waistline. And we know that's not true.
Exactly. And we actually really want carbs because they're our brain's preferred source of fuel.
Yes.
Your brain prefers to use carbs. So that's why, when you are not eating for a while and your brain feels a little foggy, it's probably because it doesn't have the energy that it needs.
Translation, if you're hangry,
yes.
You're hungry
yeah.
and you're angry, it's because you're not getting the right nutrients that go to your brain.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Okay, I love that. So walk me through more of the detailed of what a grain would be as an example.
Like a healthy grain or
yes.
a healthy carb?
Yeah.
Okay, so our carbs are going to be things like rice. They're going to be our breads, our pastas. They're going to be grains like quinoa, rice, even beans are going to have some carbs.
You're saying some important things, Lisa. If we talk to a global audience of veterans here, we're talking to people from Africa, we're talking to people in certain parts of Europe. When we talk about grains are a main staple of a diet. Maize or rice is another main staple across the world, where majority of the world lives on this as their main source of food, right?
Yeah. And rice is super healthy for us, especially if you do like a brown rice that hasn't been as processed as a white rice.
It doesn't taste as good.
Go half and half.
Try
half and half.
Okay.
It's an acquired taste. You just got to ease your way into it.
All right, veterans, we can make this change in our home. Daniel, we can start doing half and half. Half white, half brown rice. And then we're adding more nutrients into the meal. Okay.
Yep. Even like fruits are going to be carbs. And I think it's funny that everyone wants to cut out carbs, but they want to keep eating fruit because people just don't understand. Carbs really can be so healthy for us. Fruit is so healthy for us. And
What's your fruit of choice?
What's my fruit of choice?
Yeah.
I mean, right now my fruit of choice is watermelon because it's 100 degrees outside and it's easy to get dehydrated. And watermelon has fiber and nutrients and water. Right?
Yes.
And it tastes so good on a summer day.
It does taste so good. Mine right now are peaches.
Oh, so good.
That is like eating candy.
Yes.
In some countries that are watching today, especially in Africa, you've got the mango, you've got the passion fruit. All of those are just
delicious,
wonderful treats that are nutritious.
Yeah.
And beneficial.
And they can also help that sweet tooth. Maybe at night, try reaching for a piece of fruit instead of that sugary sweet and see if that satisfies.
All right, I'm taking a note on that. Fruit at night. Now, if I look at the difference in calories in between different fruits, a banana as an example, and a banana is a global fruit, bananas have a lot of calories as compared to like a kiwi or an apple.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. I mean, there is a size difference.
Yeah.
But variety is so key. That banana is going to have nutrients that your kiwi doesn't. As you look at the different colors, each different color is going to represent a different vitamin or mineral that your body needs.
I never thought of that.
So eating more colorful is always going to be beneficial.
Okay. The rainbow in fruits is what we want to achieve, right? That's our goal.
I tell clients eat the rainbow quite often.
Okay. So what is your preference in your grain? Is it rice? Is it what do you consume?
We do a lot of brown rice at our
Okay.
house because my kids will eat it. We do pasta because pasta is really easy. You can get a whole grain pasta, and if you
Yeah.
don't love a whole grain pasta, you can still do a regular pasta.
Okay.
But pastas are great when you can add a red sauce, that's full of tomatoes. You can add vegetables to it. You can do there's a lot of good seafood pastas. So there's lots of great ways to take that grain and add so many nutrients to it.
Lisa, you're giving me a great idea. I love to experiment with foods.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched a YouTube video, and I may end up posting it here in the comments, but of a person who rolled out shredded their grains, rolled it out into a dough with some water and egg, and then made their own pasta.
Oh, yeah.
And I told my 12-year-old daughter, I said, when you want to experiment in the kitchen, just let's make our own pasta.
Yeah.
Right, from scratch.
Yeah.
We know there's no additives or preservatives in there. It's the real grain at its root. And just today, and if you've heard me say my son's name, Daniel, he's one of our audio technical guys who's helping out with the video today. And today in our house, as my kids walked into the house, I was in the kitchen making kombucha because that's my drink of choice. And the rest of the smell in the house was my wife's fresh wheat bread. So she takes the wheat kernels, she grinds it into a dust powder, a flour, and then she scoops that, uses that in her bread making. It's the most delicious, nutrient dense bread.
She makes the best bread I've ever had. It is the best.
It is so yummy. And I know that as we talk to this global audience, that many of you use bread as a main staple for a lot of your meals. And so what we want to say is we want to talk about portions, we want to talk about adding in vegetables, and we want to talk about a lean protein. So if we can start to incorporate all of these elements into a dish,
Mm-hmm.
then we really will find that our health, our energy, our weight management, all of that will come into play and produce the outcome we're looking for overall,
Exactly.
right?
Mm-hmm. It's just about finding that balance and making sure that you're including all the important aspects.
So talk to me about antioxidants.
Oh, antioxidants are wonderful, right? They protect us from cancer, which is amazing, and they're so easy to eat. You just eat fruits and vegetables, and you get your antioxidants.
Just from fruits and vegetables?
Most antioxidants are from fruits and vegetables, yes. And antioxidants, what's the word I'm trying to say? Like, they die easy, or they disappear easy. So the more fresh you can get, the better. Or even if you can get frozen fruits and vegetables, that's also great.
So if I look at a vegetable, you're saying that it has a half-life in it.
Yeah.
Meaning the antioxidant portion of a pulled vegetable will diminish quickly.
I mean, not so quickly, but like once you start to cut it and cook it and let it sit for a while.
If it sits in your fridge or freezer or whatever else, you're burning the antioxidants, which is what we're looking for the benefit.
Yes. So it's so nice in some of these places around the world where they can eat local, right? I feel like where we are, we don't always get to eat local because we have a short growing season.
Yeah.
But there's so many places around the world where they can eat local, and the more local you can eat, the better, because your fruits are going to be so fresh, your vegetables are going to be so fresh, and they're really going to retain a lot of those nutrients.
Yeah. Some of our listeners today may have, and I spent a lot of time in Africa, may have more of a starch-based diet with your vegetable, because that's what comes easiest. That grows in abundance in some countries in Africa, and it's what people eat.
Yeah, and that's great too. I feel like potatoes really get a bad rap because they're high in carbohydrates. But like I said, each fruit and vegetable is going to have something to bring to the table. It's going to have something beneficial for you. They're all going to have fiber, and then they're all going to have their own special vitamins and minerals to add to your diet.
I love that. When we talk about, that was interesting. When we talk about adding these pieces into our normal diet, there's a way we can test these foods to see how we react with them over time. So if as an example, you were willing to change your diet, who's the audience today, and modify certain pieces of this, Don't add anything else in except some of the things we've talked about, and let's see how you feel after a week or two.
Yeah.
And what changes you've experienced. Now, I'm not looking for you to jump on a scale and check your weight, but I'm looking for what you feel like your energy levels will react to, because that's the real benefit here, right?
It is. It really is. That number on the scale is just a number. It's really not what's most important at the end of the day. At the end of the day, we want to feel good, right?
Yes.
We want to be able to do those things and those activities, have the quality of life that we want.
Yeah.
The number is just a number.
It's just a number.
Mm-hmm.
So when I look at health and fitness industry, they push a lot of products. They pushed a lot of mixed products, and when I tried, and I'll show my supplements on here at some point, but I take a couple of supplements that I feel like I'm not getting enough in my own nutrients yet, but maybe if I switched and modified my diet to more than Mediterranean, I would get those. But I add in some extra vitamins to supplant it. And Leisa mentioned, we live in an environment where most of the year we have freezing temperature and snow, right? So it's not like we're going outside all the time and getting the vitamin D in our skin. And I've talked about this on my videos previously. This is why I take a walk in the morning when it's nice outside, because I love the feeling of the sun coming over the mountain and hitting me right in the face.
Yeah.
It just feels so good. Some of your comments have been to wear no shoes and walk through my grass barefoot and be grounded. I haven't gotten there yet. But
worth a shot though, right?
I guess if you guys are willing to modify your diet to find better benefits, maybe I can go shoeless and find some better benefits there too. Who knows?
But yes, vitamin D is so important, and there are certain vitamins that are harder to get for sure.
Okay.
So adding a vitamin D supplement is not going to be a bad idea, especially where we live, because it's hard to get the sun.
Yes. Now here's a question, and you may not know the answer to it, but it's been something that's generating a lot of discussion among veterans. Some of the testing that I've done to try to help my memory and my TBI symptoms have focused around brain waves, focusing on neuroplasticity or a rerouting of the pathways, neural pathways in your brain to heal some of this damaged area. This is an area where an explosion hit. This is an area where I landed on my head from an airborne jump. Like, this whole area is my damaged spot. So consider for a moment what your life is like currently. We've had a lot of videos on fitness. Now let's focus on this nutrition aspect. When we talk about supplementation and vitamins, what are some that you would recommend the audience today to consider?
It's difficult to say because every person's different, right?
Okay, that's a good point.
And first, we want to try and get it from food. But some of the ones that people can be low on, vitamin D for sure. Vitamin B12 is one that a lot of people are low on, and especially with the Mediterranean diet, if you're limiting red meat, because we do get vitamin B12 from red meat. So if you're limiting red meat, vitamin B12 is one of those that you could for sure add, and it's going to boost energy. Magnesium is another one that can be low and can be really beneficial as far as like depression and that type of thing.
It benefits?
Adding, yes, you want magnesium. And it helps with iron also. So there's a lot of things that we can add, and honestly, adding a multivitamin is probably never going to hurt.
Yeah.
There's only a few vitamins that you can get too much of. On all the others, if your body has more than it needs, it just gets rid of it.
So it's like protein. So if you ingest a lot of protein, and some of the ways people who are doing fitness industries recommend protein shakes. But if you ingest too much protein, it's not like it's going to add a value to your body. Right. Your body will just excrete it. Like, you won't keep it. So it's important to know what you are right now and what you're doing. And then we can do some calculations at a later point and tell you exactly what your burn rate is, what your intake would be. But over proteining, and I've seen guys do it in the gym, it's ridiculous. They'll take 100 grams of protein and they're just wasting their money. So we'll talk about that at a later point, but just as a good side note there from this.
Yeah. So like I said, the only ones you can have too much on are vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, and vitamin K. because those are what we call fat-soluble vitamins. They're stored in our fat.
Ooh.
The other ones are water-soluble. So if you're taking multivitamin, your body will take what it needs and get rid of the rest.
Okay, I'm going to have to go check my vitamins at home and make sure I'm not ingesting more of this than I need to have.
You're probably okay. Unless you're eating a lot of fruits and vegetables, you're probably okay.
All right, so talk to me about probiotics. I mentioned kombucha.
Yeah.
So have you consumed kombucha at all before?
I have.
Okay, so I like to make a mixed blend of kombucha with different types of like herbal teas.
Yeah.
And then I take the SCOBY that's grown from the lactobacillus and I ferment it for a period of like 3 weeks. And I just did a video about this today. And then I'll take that fermented liquid and I'll pour it into fruit. And then with that fruit, I'll seal up the lid in an anaerobic environment and keep it for another 4 to 5 days. And then it's ready to be consumed and it's flavored at that point. So I've just done that today. And I'm doing it mainly because I wanted to stop soda. The other reason is I want it to be a probiotic for my gut.
Right.
So.
Right. There's so much new research coming out right now. And it's awesome research on the gut-brain connection, right? So we have this nerve that connects our gut to our brain.
Yeah.
It's called the vagus nerve. And they're finding out that if your gut isn't healthy, it really does affect other parts of your body, just like your brain. So if you're taking probiotics and prebiotics, it's going to help that environment in your gut, which really can benefit other parts of your body.
The gut-brain connection. That is something
It's fascinating.
new. That's something new for me. I don't know about that at all.
It's fascinating. And honestly, it's a pretty new area of research.
Okay.
They're just now, like within the last few years, they're discovering that we really have this whole like microbiome in our gut with good bacteria. I think people hear bacteria and they always think it's bad, but there is great bacteria and we need it in our gut.
Yes.
To help digest our food, to help with food absorption, all of those things.
Yeah, when people hear like lactobacillus and drinking this bacteria, or the byproduct of the bacteria, it really is wonderful. I don't feel any other effect other than just it feels clean to me when I consume it.
Yeah.
This brain-gut connection is an interesting theory that we may want to pursue at a later time and get into some of that research, because I would love to know a little bit more about that.
Perfect.
Leisa mentioned that innovation or research continues to develop in terms of nutrition and the benefits to our body, especially to our brain.
Yeah.
And some of you can relate to this too, but I had my traumatic accidents years ago, and when they scanned my brain initially, they said, we don't see any bruising on the brain, we don't see any damage.
Yeah.
And more and more research continues to come out about brain health and neuroplasticity, as I've already mentioned. There is a lot of hope still to come in terms of medical research in this area that I think will really add a lot of benefit going forward in the near future. We have more and more dedicated people, as passionate as Leisa here, who are diving in and trying to find ways to make that connection to the brain something that really works for us.
Yeah. Yeah, nutrition is always an evolving area of research, right? Think about how many 20, 30 years ago, everyone was using margarine, and now, because they thought that was healthy, and now research has come out that trans fats are horrible for us, right? So it's one of those things that's always evolving, which is what makes it exciting to be a part of. But I'm loving the new research on just how our gut really affects things, and also how to fuel ourselves, looking into those healthy fats, because our brain is made of fat and how that can help heal things.
Our brain is made of fat.
Yeah, our brain has a lot of fat in it.
Who would have known? I didn't know this. Our brain is made of fat.
It has a lot of fat.
Oh my goodness. Well, so there is such a thing as good fat in your body.
There is. There really is.
Oh my goodness.
Everyone needs a little bit of fat.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So when we talk about healthy fats, as an example, if I were to look at a fitness program for your macros, your proteins, your carbs, and your fats, I've looked at things that say consume about an equal amount of proteins and carbs and then a smaller amount of your fats. So if I was looking for, 3,200 calories, an example, and I can show you the math later, but I would want to limit my protein to 80, 90 grams of protein, and something similar to that for the carbs, and then the fats would be 50 grams or under, something like that.
Yeah, and it kind of depends on the person, right, and what their overall goals are.
Yeah.
But yes, like finding that balance, it should be more, the USDA would recommend more carbs and then protein and then fat. But if you're wanting more of a high protein diet, if you're wanting to build that muscle, if you're just wanting to try something else, and carbs are kind of a hard thing for people to limit or control, you know what I mean? It's easy to overconsume those carbs.
Because carbs usually have a lot of flavor.
Oh yeah.
Well, so do fats too, but yeah.
That's true. Yeah. That's true. But yes, it would be a little extra carb and then your protein and then like 15% of your diet from fat, give or take. Okay. This is all really helpful. I hope that some of you are starting to take some notes. I've never met with a nutritionist previously. I've heard people talk about different things, but this partnership going forward, when we talk about veterans' health, wellness journey, and the nutrition aspect, will be something that we should talk about more going forward, more targeted topics. Yes.
And I think that we can make it a little bit easier for you all to understand, and also to find a realistic way to implement this into your day-to-day routines. When we talk about self-care and eating, what does that include, do you think?
So a lot of it is, like we've talked about, eating those foods that are going to fuel your body.
Yeah.
But also being easy on yourself when you don't. It's so easy to eat something and then you think, oh, I shouldn't have eaten that. You start to feel guilty. You spiral. You say, well, I already blew it, so now I'm going to eat this. And food is not something that we want to stress about. We don't want emotion involved with food. We just want you to be able to eat, enjoy, and go about your day.
I hope you took notes from what Leisa just said, because that is a key for our wellness journey. If we are focused on our journey with guilt and shame, then we will never make the progress we want to make. So when you make a mistake, when you eat something that's not part of the plan for our overall brain health, push it to the back, move it out of the way, and say, what can I do right now that will make a difference going forward? Remember, nothing that Leisa and I are talking about today is talking about a quick fix for anything. We are talking about long-term health and nutrition for our bodies and for our minds.
Yeah, it's a lifestyle. It's not a quick fix. It's not a fad diet. We want to make sure that whatever you're working on, whatever you're doing, you can try to maintain your whole life. If it's something that's supposed to be a 2-week program, to lose 20 pounds, it's probably not your best option.
Yeah. And I can tell you from my own experiences, and I've done several of them, and my son kind of smiles at me, but any kind of the fad diet where I'm cutting out one of those 3 elements or another, yes, you can lose weight, but it is not sustainable, because none of those diets are concerned about fueling your body with the proper nutrients. They're talking about taking something away where you're sacrificing to lose. Now, if you were to try this Mediterranean diet, and Leisa and I will talk about this at another time, but we can go into more detail about the structure of it, the cost, the preparation. If you were willing to switch to something like this, you would know that you have everything at your disposal to find the best benefit to health. And if you too have struggled with PTSD or TBI symptoms, this is the next step that people at the VA aren't even talking to us about. They're so inundated that they can't focus on what Leisa has just broken down for us in such the simplest terms to make a deep impression upon your body and your mind. So I absolutely love this conversation. I think that going forward, we're going to add a lot more value when we dive deep into some of these things.
Right.
And instead of having my flimsy whiteboard, hopefully we'll have a whiteboard up here on the wall, and we can map some of this out so it's easy for you to take note of. I want to thank Leisa for joining us today and for walking us through this first iteration of Nutrition for Veterans Health. If you have any questions that come from this video, please reach out to her. I'll include Leisa's information as well in the description below. Please like, subscribe, and share, and always, always get a win for your day. Do something hard. Remember, we were taught to be physically tough, mentally tough, and although we struggle and depression and anxiety can beat us down, you still have a lot of value. You still have a lot to give to yourself, to your family, your community. Don't give up. If nutrition is one step you can take today where you can make a difference, check that box, get a win. Thanks very much for tuning in today, and we will have another episode in the near future with Leisa and continue this wellness journey. Thanks.
Thank you.